I think Rudrani's getting me water already. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari 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 Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yasoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yasoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yasoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yasoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yasoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yasoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Ora Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada Prabhupada Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya, Jaya, Prabhupada, Jaya, Jaya, Prabhupada, 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 Jaya, Jaya, Prabhupada. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parikacharya Satya Sada Shishima's Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Anantakoti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Dvaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaur Bhaktivinda Ki Jai. Jai Radha Krishna Gopa Govana Shai Makunda Radha Kunda Giri Gaurani Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Mayapur Navadip Dham Ki Jai. Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Gaur Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Shri Guru and Gauranga Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, chapter 63, and this is verse 43, and this is continuing with the prayers of Lord Shiva to Krishna. Aham Brahmata Vibhuda Munayas Chamalashaya Sarvatmana Prapanas Tvam Shaya Mana Prapanam Preshtam Ishvaram Aham Brahmata Vibhuda Munayas Chamalashaya Sarvatmana Prapanas Tvam Atmanam Preshtam Ishvaram Aham Brahmata Vibhuda Munayas Chamalashaya Sarvatmana Prapanas Tvam Atmanam Preshtam Ishvara. Devotees? Munayas Chamalasaya Atmanam Nivanascha Atmanam Hestamishvaram Aham Brahmata Vibhuda Munayas Chamalasaya Sarvatmanam Pramanas Tvam Atmanam Hestamishvaram Aham Brahmana Vibhudam Munayas Chamalashaya Sarvatmana Pramanas Tvam Atmanam Preshtam Ishvaram. Aham Brahmata Vibhuda Munayas Chamalashaya Sarvatmana Prabhanas Tvam Atmanam Praistam Ishvaram Aham I Brahma Ata and also Vibhuda the demigods Munaya the sages Cha and Amala pure Ashraya whose consciousness Sarva Atmana wholeheartedly Prapana surrendered Tvam unto you Atmanam the self Preshtam the dearmost Ishvaram the Lord. Translation by the disciples of Srila Prabhupada. I, Lord, Lord Brahma, the other demigods, and the pure-minded sages have all surrendered wholeheartedly unto you, our dearmost self and Lord. Please repeat. I, Lord Brahma, the other demigods, and the pure-minded sages have all surrendered wholeheartedly unto you, our dearmost self and Lord. There's no purport by Srila Prabhupada's disciples. However, there are some tikas by the Goswamis, and we will read those. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur writes, and in his style he writes by adding another line. This is Krishna responding to this prayer. I have forgotten whatever you have done. Now what will you and the devatas accompanying you do? So that's Krishna replying. And then, now back to Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur speaking. By describing the Lord as Supersoul, dearmost, and the Supreme Lord, he informs the Lord, he is Shiva, he informs the Lord that he was condemning himself as the person who drinks poison in the previous verse, having given up the Amrita and having fought with the Lord for the sake of Banasura, who is not Paramatma, not dear, and not the supreme controller. Jiva Goswami writes, this insignificant person does not worship you, even, and this is Shiva saying this about himself, even we who are perfect worship you. By not worshiping you, he destroys himself. I and Brahma have attained the highest positions by accepting, by becoming the guna avatars. Devarshis, Vibhuda, Brahmarshis, Munaya, and Atmaramas, whose hearts are clean or are fixed in Brahman, take shelter of you with complete conviction and worship you, since you are the root, Swarup, Atmanam, dearest of all, and the Lord. Sanatana Goswami writes, therefore we, the devatas, headed by Indra, and even the sages headed by Shanaka, who all take shelter of you with dedication, worship you, because of which they have pure hearts. Without the surrender, they cannot become pure. Or the sages purify their hearts of Advaita contamination. Without surrender, one has the great fault of ungratefulness. Thus they surrender fully to you. Om Agyanatimirandasya Ganan Shalakaya Shakshu Unmiditang Gena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Nama Om Vishnu Badaya Krishna Bastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swamini Tadamani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Bacharani Nirvasesa Shunyavadi Praschachadeshtarni Vanchakapatrubhyas Chakripa Sindhubhya Chapatinam Pavanevya Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Dvaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. There's some interesting words in this verse and how they're applied. Buddha means intelligent. And so that's how Lord Buddha gets his name. Just as karma means action, and vikarma means wrong action, so vibuddha means wrong intelligence. And that's the word that's used for the demigods, that they have the wrong intelligence. Also, later on in the one of the commentaries, it's not Goswami's commentary, he describes that Vibhuta also describes the munis, munaya, who are contaminated with Mayavad understandings. So here Lord Shiva is speaking very humbly and describing the demigods, of which he is one, although he's greater than all the other demigods, as Vibhuta, having poor intelligence. And another word here used, and this is an important word, prapana, surrendered. It's prapanas in the verse, but this word prapana, surrender, we see in a lot of different places in the literature that we read. Perhaps one place we know is the 11th chapter 4 of verse number 11, where it states, Ye yatam mam prapadyante tams tataiva bhajamyaham mamavart manuvartante manusha partasarvashaha. So the word prapadyante is the same as prapanas, the same means surrender. So it says that as all surrender unto me, I reward them accordingly. So the demigods get rewarded, the munis get rewarded, pious persons get rewarded according to their surrender. And if one wants material well-being, nakama sarva kama va moksha kama udaradi tivrena bhakti yogena yajeta purusham param. It's recommended that one go to Krishna, whether one has no desires, all desires, desires liberation, because Krishna will fulfill all desires. But all desires aren't equal. The desires for material enjoyment don't help the living entity, because the living entity simply has to suffer more and more, with some little breaks in the obvious suffering for some relative less suffering, which we call enjoyment. Someone goes on vacation and they think they're going to enjoy. It never is as good as they say until they come back home and tell people about it. Or show pictures on Facebook which make it look like they're really happy, but the big smiling face belies the fact that they've got a terrible sunburn. So anyway, these things happen in the material world. We don't really get what we bargained for. This brings us to a couple verses later on in the Bhagavad Gita, which talks about surrender in another way. Who surrenders and who doesn't surrender? Text 15 of the 7th chapter, Namam duskritino mudha prapadyante naradama mayaya pritagyana asuram bhavam ashritaha. Those miscreants who are grossly foolish, who are lowest among mankind, whose knowledge is stolen by illusion, and who partake of the atheistic nature of demons, do not surrender unto me. So the word prapadyante is also used here. But in this case, namam, not to me, surrender. They don't surrender to me. They surrender to something else. Their lust, their anger, their greed. So Prabhupada makes the point that people who are not pious, in the purport he speaks, they're not going to surrender to Krishna because they simply want to try to enjoy on their own, either because they're foolish or because they're demoniac or something else, illusioned. Now, the next verse, we know this talks about the other class of people. And oftentimes, and it's interesting when I was looking at these verses yesterday, I was struck by the words, and Krishna uses words intentionally for a purpose. We oftentimes will just lump this next verse into like the people who surrender to Krishna, but please note Krishna's words. Chaturvida bhajante mam, jana sukritinor juna, arta jignasur artarti, gyanicha bharatarshaba. There's no word surrender here. O best among the Bhartas, 4 kinds of pious men begin to render devotional service unto me, the distressed, the desire of wealth, the inquisitive, and he who is searching for knowledge of the absolute. Bhajante, they start their bhajan, or their worship of Krishna. It doesn't mean surrender, because surrender has a very, very, as Prabhupada will tell us here shortly, has a very clear definition. And Prabhupada writes, unlike the miscreants, these are adherents, these 4 of regulated principles of the scriptures, and they are called sukritina, or those who obey the rules and regulations of scriptures, the moral and social laws, and are more or less devoted to the Supreme Lord. Out of these 4 classes of men, those who are sometimes distressed, those who are in need of money, those who are sometimes inquisitive, and those who are sometimes searching after knowledge of the absolute. These persons come to the Supreme Lord for devotional service under different conditions. These are not pure devotees because they have some aspiration to fulfill in exchange for devotional service. So that means that when I came to Krishna consciousness, because I was inquisitive and I was also really suffering, I really wasn't surrendered. I mean, I surrendered in the sense that I joined the movement, but I was still really coming for the purpose of alleviation of distress and some knowledge. So we have to come to a higher platform in our devotional service in order to be called surrendered. Let's see what Prabhupada says about this quality of surrender. Speaking in 2 classes. The first class, this is from Srimad Bhagavatam. He's speaking in Los Angeles on May 30th, 1972, and this is coming from the 2nd canto, 3rd chapter, and he's speaking in verses 13 and 14. Prabhupada speaking, if Krishna is giving me suffering, that's all right. That is surrender. I have to surrender to Krishna, and now Krishna is giving me suffering. Leave Krishna consciousness? That is not surrender. Surrender means in any condition you'll remain surrendered. That is surrender. Not that I put my own conditions, and if you satisfy me, then I shall surrender. That is business. That is not surrender. Surrender means in any condition, fully surrender to Krishna, without hankering. What is hankering? I know Krishna will give me all protection. So then, why shall I hanker? Without hankering. Simple. No duplicity. The worldly men, they are duplicitous. Speaking something and then cheating. The word duplicitous or duplicitousness. What does it mean? Two-faced. Hypocrite. I say one thing and then I do something else. This is a big problem. If I want to put myself as a big, big devotee, but actually I've got really some ugly habits, that's not helpful. And that's really, really dangerous, because that's where fall down comes from. You know, they say fake it till you make it. That's all right in business. But in Krishna consciousness, you really can't fake it till you make it. Because if you keep faking it, you'll never make it. You can't make it if you fake it. You have to actually do it. And therefore, one of the original acharyas, many, many years ago, I'm talking like 1980, he had just had some correction done at the order of the GBC. And he had come out reformed. Actually, in the end, he wasn't reformed, but he was, at this point, speaking a truth. And he said, you can't fall down if you're on the floor. So if we keep ourselves in a humble position, admitting that, yes, I am imperfect, but I'm trying to follow my best, the process of Krishna consciousness, to purify my heart so that I can one day become really surrendered. And Prabhupada writes more about, or speaks more about surrender in this next lecture, which is from the Srimad Bhagavatam, 5th canto, 5th chapter, 2nd verse, and this is in Hyderabad on April 12th, 1975. Absolute surrender means anyabhilasita shunyam. I am surrendering to Krishna to get this benefit. That is conditional surrender. I surrender to Krishna without any motive. That is absolute. Anyabhilasita shunyam jnana karmadyanavritam anukulyena krishnanu shilanam bhaktir uttamam. This is a very famous verse. And then Prabhupada says, no motive. That is required. If I think I shall get some benefit, that is business. That is not bhakti. This is taught by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So Lord Chaitanya's teaching is that we must come to the platform of saying that Krishna, you can do whatever you like. I'm your surrendered servant. Crush me in your embrace, or leave me brokenhearted by not being present before me. But you're always free to do anything, because you are my worshipful Lord. This is a high standard to come to. And I'm not there. I don't have that. But I don't feel discouraged. We can feel discouraged. But discouragement comes when we are, in a sense, envious of what we would be if we were a pure devotee. I really want to be that. I want to be that pure devotee. Well, why do we want to be a pure devotee? Oh, if I'm a pure devotee, then I get the Maha plate. If I'm a pure devotee, then there'll be flowers at my feet. If I'm a pure devotee, well, you know, the disciples of Jesus Christ, if let's say they were pure devotees, they all died horrible deaths, just like their guru. some of them weren't just like their guru, but they were all hounded and hunted and hurt, and their bhakti didn't get them a lot of respect. So in the same way, we see that pure devotees like Srila Prabhupada take risks coming to America when they're 70 years old and not in the best health, and suffering heart attacks and then deprivation. I mean, his life, Prabhupada's life, was really a very hard life in New York. I mean, it'd be hard for us to live like he lived in New York. Imagine someone who's coming from Vrindavan, a pure devotee, and having to see things that are just abominable. But he had so much compassion. He had compassion even, for the bums, like the bum who came in with the toilet paper during the talk. And Prabhupada said he is out of order, but he has got the right mood of service. So Prabhupada saw in that bum who came in smelly and drunk something good, that he wanted to do some service by providing some paper towels and toilet paper for the temple. So this is a pure devotee. And the pure devotee goes through a lot of difficulties. Like Prabhupada, Prabhupada left us when he was 81 years old. And, he really pushed himself in his last years. Push around the world so many times. I don't even like to fly in an airplane more than 5 hours. And Prabhupada was flying around the world, over and over again. And he never lost step. He always stayed regulated. His servants would be jet lagged and Prabhupada would just keep going. This is pure devotion. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he had death threats from so-called Goswamis in Vrindavan when he was taking around persons who they thought were impure on the parikramas. He wasn't deterred. He kept going. So this is pure devotion. Now, in my present state, how do I get pure devotion? How do I actually become a pure devotee without becoming a sort of, I want to be a pure devotee because I get something for it, or I want to be a pure devotee because pure devotees don't suffer. Well, pure devotees do suffer, but they don't suffer because they don't suffer like we suffer. We suffer because we think we're the body, and they don't think that. So even though the body's suffering, they don't suffer. They suffer, but they know better. So what is that quality that we can have that is something that will help us become a pure devotee, that will not lead us to becoming puffed up in our so-called advancement in Krishna consciousness. So-called, I say, because on the exterior we can become, quote, very advanced, but in the interior we may not be advanced. And I think the secret we find in Sanatana Goswami's comment. Without surrender, they cannot become pure. We can't become pure unless we surrender. Without surrender, one has the great fault of ungratefulness. We don't have gratitude. This is a great fault. And that's something we can practice, gratefulness. We can practice gratefulness because we know that our Gurudev lifted us out of a hellish condition. And we're grateful for that, even though we haven't necessarily taken full advantage of his mercy, because we maintain some internal impurities that we somehow still find nice to have. So this gratefulness And I look back on my own life, not only did Prabhupada give me an opportunity to associate with devotees, and ultimately someday, somewhere, some birth, become a pure devotee, someday. But he also changed the course of this life so that I didn't simply degrade myself and become a total nonsense. For that fact, and that is a fact, I'm grateful. So if Prabhupada did that, something I can recognize, wow, he's offered me a lot more, and I just haven't got it yet. And it's been I think it's been a long time, like a half a century since I've been initiated. Half a century. Well, just half a century. It's not very long. Some of the sages, they meditated for thousands of years in order to reach perfection. And we're thinking, oh my God, I haven't reached perfection yet. Well, we haven't reached perfection yet because within our hearts, we still have something we cherish, which is I, me, and mine. I am something. I want something. I own something. But how to cultivate this gratefulness? And then when I was reading through some of the verses, there was a cross-reference to another verse that is in the Bhagavatam, and it's Uddhava speaking to Krishna after Krishna has given him the instructions called the Uddhava Gita. It's the very end of the Uddhava Gita, and it's Uddhava's response to Krishna for his long instructions, much longer than the Bhagavad Gita and deeper. And Uddhava says, this is Canto 11, Chapter 29, verse number 6. O my Lord, transcendental poets and experts in spiritual science could not fully express their indebtedness to you, even if they were endowed with the prolonged lifetime of Brahma. For you appear in two features, externally as the Acharya and internally as the Supersoul. Why? To deliver the embodied soul being to deliver the embodied living being by directing him how to come to you. By directing them how to come to you. We're learning how to come to Krishna. And here, the purport by Srila Prabhupada's disciples is taken from Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur and Jiva Goswami. According to Srila Jiva Goswami, Lord Krishna is 10 million times more dear to a devotee than life itself. 10 million times, and that's actually that's an understatement. Life, what is life? What is life in this body? It's short. It's imperfect. It's not a good experience overall. Like one story of a sage who had the benediction of being able to remember all his lives, billions of lives, and when asked, well, was there anything good in any of them? No, not a thing. Not a thing. So, according to Srila Jiva Goswami, Lord Krishna is 10 million times more dear to a devotee than life itself. And according to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, even by rendering devotional service for the total duration of 1,000 universal creations, a devotee cannot repay the debt he feels to the Lord for having awarded him loving service to the Lord's lotus feet. Let's be grateful. 10,000 universal creation. That's 10,000 lifetimes of Brahma. Brahma lives for 311 trillion years, which is a blink of the eye well, actually, it's one breath for Lord Vishnu, Mahavishnu. The Lord appears within the heart of as the supersoul, and externally as both as the spiritual master and his literary incarnation, the supreme Vedic knowledge of Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. The supreme Vedic knowledge of Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. Tapareshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistaki, that rendering service unto the pure devotee and hearing the Bhagavatam purifies the heart of the devotee and reduces the impurities in the heart almost to nothing. And Prabhupada says in that purport to that verse that there is the book Bhagavat and the person Bhagavat. And both Bhagavats can deliver the conditioned soul. So I, as a conditioned soul, am praying to stay grateful so that somehow or other Krishna, through my Gurudev, and through his words in the Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, and other Vedic literatures, can waken in my heart the actual pure desire to serve. And it may be a while, but it's coming. After all, what was it? Was it Mukunda? I think it was Mukunda when Lord Chaitanya said, yes, Mukunda will get pure devotional service after 10,000 births or something like that. And he jumped up and said, I will get. So we will get. And in the meantime, let's be grateful that we have gotten what we've got, which is the association of devotees, the Bhagavatam, a guru, and a chance to associate with the Supreme Personality of Godhead every day as they open the curtains for Sri Sri Radhagolokananda. So I'll stop there. Questions, comments, corrections, etc. Hare Krishna. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. A little faking it till you make it in the beginning. But after you're here for a while, you can't keep faking it. You got to make it to stay. So in the beginning, yeah. But, if you're staying for a long time and you're staying for the wrong reason, just like we've heard, sometimes someone's a sannyasi for a very long time and then they fall down. How's that? Not if we're really, really sincere. So fake it till you make it works for maybe until you're initiated, but then after that, the guru says, no more faking. 16 rounds, follow the principles. Hare Krishna.
Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Kanvanta Maravindadalaya Taksha Sitam Buddha Sundaranga Kandar Agong Vikamaniya Vishesha Shobha Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Angani Yasa Sakale Kriya Priti Manti Pasyanti Panti Kayanti Jiram Naganti Ananda Chinmaya Sadhu Jala Vigrahasya Govindam Adi Purusham Amaham Bhajami Govindam Adi Purusham Amaham Bhajami Govindam Adi Purusham Namaham 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 Bhajami Govindam Adi
Sabhavata Sharashiramani Kevalananda Kanda Bhajo Bhajo Bhai Chaitanya Nitai Sudridha Vishvasakari Bhajo Bhajo Bhai Chaitanya Nitai Sudridha Vishvasakari Vishvasakari Vishayacharya Serase Majia Mukhe Bolo Hari Hari Ya Serase Shaya Chariya Sera Se Majia Mukhe Bolo Hari Hari. Deko Ode Bai Tribhuvane Nai Emana Doyala Data Deka Ode Bai Tribhuvane Nai Emanaya Ladata Tribhuvane Nai Emanaya Ladata Pashupaki Jare Pashana Vidare Shuni Jara Gunagata Paki Jare Pashana Vidare Shuni Jara Guna Pashupaki Jare Pashana Vidare Shuni Jara Guna Gata. Sangsare Majia Rohili Podia Sepade Nahilo Asha Sangsare Majia Rohili Podia Sepade Nahilo Asha Apana Karama Bunjaye Samana Kahoye Lochana Dasa Apana Karama Bunjaye Samana Kahoye Lochana Dasa Parama Karuna Pahudvijana Nitai Gora Chandra Parama Karuna Pahudvijana Nitai Gora Chandra Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nitai Gaurachandra, Lord Nitai and Lord Chaitanya are very merciful. They're the essence of all incarnations, and their specific significance is that prosecuting their way of self-realization is simply joyful, for they introduce chanting and dancing. My dear brother, I request that you just worship Lord Chaitanya and Nityananda with firm conviction and faith. If one gives up sense gratification to be Krishna conscious by this process, one is sure to reach the desired goal. One simply has to chant Hare Krishna, Hari, without any sense gratifying motive. My dear brother, you just try and examine this. Within the three worlds, there is no one like Lord Chaitanya or Lord Nityananda, because their merciful qualities are so great that they make even birds and beasts cry. What to speak of human beings? Even stone will melt at the chanting. My dear mind, you are